I'm gonna just do this real quick. 1 second. I know that's recording, right? Yeah, good, exactly. In here recording. We on episode 7. It's Monday, September 30th. Got my juice right here. My girl, Yara hooked me up. Juice Capital. Juice in his life on Instagram. Dope man. I did a 5-week detox cleanse. Amazing. Hit her up. Let her know that J.Nicole sent you. You will not get a discount, and I won't get any commission. But listen, we got all work together, so go show her some love. I'm ready whenever you are, Dev. Welcome to the Grief Bully podcast. I am your host, J.Nicole. Thank you for joining our weekly discussion around grief, mental health, and your overall personal wellness. The Grief Bully podcast will serve as a vehicle to help you navigate life's journey. Be sure to subscribe, review, and share the podcast with anyone in your life that you think it will help. Let's bully grief together. What's up, beautiful people? Welcome back to another episode of the Grief Bully podcast. I am your host, J.Nicole. What's up? Thank you so much for tuning in another week. If it's your first time, we welcome you to the show. You are going to thoroughly enjoy yourself. You might be a little uncomfortable, might be some tough conversations, but it's definitely well needed. Today is Monday, September the 30th already. We are knocking on October's door. I can't believe it. I'm getting closer and closer to 34. But these days I embrace it because it's coming with wisdom and a few gray hair. Okay, more than a few gray hair. But listen, I just want to recap last week's show. We had a guest on, special guest, Kira Young, K Young, the artist. She was on here. She dropped some serious gems, knowledge. I mean, her story is one that we can't make up. If you have not had a chance to go back and listen to that episode, please do so. Download it, as well as the other episodes that are there. I will always ask you to please leave a review. 5 stars, not 1, not 2, 3, or 4. 5 stars. Leave me a little content there. It will help me get the show in front of more people and just show the value. So last week, Kara was on here. She showed us her bravery, her resilience, and the unfortunate passing of her 2 brothers. She lost them, unfortunately, back-to-back in 2015 and 17 to drug overdoses. So it was very important to have her come on the show and show you, a story of resilience. One thing that really stuck out to me in the show with her, a quote was that she said the highest point of her life was when she regained her purpose. And I think that's something that really stuck with me. And I want to encourage you, if you've been through something difficult in your life, it is possible and it will be possible to regain purpose at some point. May not seem like it now, but you absolutely will get there. So we're going to get into this show, guys. I want to tell you, I am home alone. I mean, not technically. I have a producer here and I have Tanya here with me, but I'm home by myself. I'm going to relax today. The last couple of weeks, I had a couple of guests on here, and now I'm by myself. So that means that you guys get me to yourself. I'm going to go in today on a topic that is very important. I do want to tell you this. I often listen to my episodes over and over and over again. Multiple times just to see, where I'm at, how am I growing, am I adding value to your life? Am I staying according to the plan and the vision that I had for myself in the show? I think sometimes, I want to be professional because I am a professional, but I also want to chill. My vision for this show was to be more of a relaxed atmosphere where we can just have conversation and dialogue around a topic that I feel is not being talked about enough, or when it's being talked about, it's kind of being tiptoed around. And so I always wanted to just peel back the onion, be raw, uncut, and get into it. And so in preparation for my shows, I always think about it, pray about it, get an outline typed up, just a few bullet points, or today looks like a lot of bullet points and information here, and have everything in order. And so today I was driving. I actually have a pretty long commute for my full-time job. And I was really just thinking about what I was talking about today. And something just didn't feel 100%, like it wasn't as deep, or just where I really wanted to go with it. And so I kind of took a total different direction. So bear with me with this one, because I'm going to speak from my heart in addition to, the points that I already had here. So what I want to talk about today is this, basically from the notion of grief will meet you where you are. And I think in order for us to understand that, we have to understand our traumas, our experiences in our lives as individuals. So I say that to say this. Grief will meet you where you are. So whatever your life experiences are, whatever you've been through, anything that challenges that you faced, what you have not dealt with is still there. So when you are met with grief, it is going to be there and show up in your life where you are. So if you haven't done the work, if you haven't taken care of the trauma that you faced in your life, and then you end up losing someone in your life, a loved one, it's only going to pile on and add on to that. So I want to kind of take a trip back. If you've been following the show, then you probably know a lot about my story as far as the losses that I have experienced over the last couple of years. But one thing I had to realize when I was really thinking about this today is that the way that I've responded to my grief is no different than how I respond to all the other trauma and experiences that I faced in my life. So I'm just going to get personal with you if you will let me. So when I was young, when I was a kid, I actually witnessed and experienced a lot of domestic violence. I saw my parents fighting in ways that I probably shouldn't have. And my dad was on drugs, also on using alcohol on alcohol. He also drank a lot of alcohol. He was alcoholic. Rest his soul. Dad, I'm just keeping it 100. Used to get real turned up. And unfortunately, we had to experience some of the negative outcomes from that. I don't personally recall seeing my mom drink and use drugs, but I know that she did. I don't even actually recall her smoking cigarettes or anything like that, but I know there was a lot of chaos, a lot of traumatic experiences, a lot of police being called, a lot of screaming, yelling, phone calls that interrupt the night, a lot of things that can make you feel very uneasy. And so I can remember at a young age always feeling like I needed to try to make someone happy, make the situation better and just come to the rescue and be there to save the situation. And then so I look at my life now currently and I'm still the same person. I still show up the same way. So it's no mystery to me that when grief knocked on my door, I responded. And I responded with things like the Grief Bully podcast, writing a book, just reaching out and helping others because that's just who I am naturally. But what I also realized is that because I have experienced so much trauma and unfortunate situations throughout my life, the grief didn't really, I want to say, shake me to a core where when it was happening, I didn't know how to just respond. I did. Like when it came to having to go to the hospital, make the tough decisions, make those calls, like I just did it. And so when I'm reflecting, I'm like, how did you just do that? And it's not to be proud. It's to say like, man, we really experienced some stuff in our lives that can allow us to be desensitized to things that happen where they probably need a little bit more of our attention. So I've worked, timelessly with therapists throughout the years to help me work on those things. But when we talk about coping mechanisms, which is one of the points that I want to talk about today, which the definition of a coping mechanism is any effort directed to stress management, including task-oriented and ego defense mechanisms, the factors that enable an individual to regain emotional equilibrium after a stressful experience. So that's the definition of coping mechanism. And what I try to use this show as is a healthy coping mechanism, but I also realize I've mentioned these topics, just touched in here and there on them, but I never really parked there and talked about them and gave you, the opportunity to see what that looks like. So I told you a little bit about my story, and I try to say that, hey, I'm resilient, I push through, I'm tough, right? But when I really look back to it, a lot of the grief that I've experienced prior to losing loved ones was the childhood that I thought that I should have deserved, that maybe I should have been entitled to or experienced, right? And how do I respond to those things, and how did I respond? So again, the savior complex, my codependency issues, all of these things are not healthy coping mechanisms, but they are my natural reaction to experiences. I myself, this December, will be celebrating 11 years sober, Lord willing, if I make it that far. I'm hoping so. But I say that to say that I had a battle with alcohol that is not one that I'm proud of. And now when I look back on that and I used to think like, man, was I just getting turned up with my friends or was there something deeper to it? And now that I look back at it, that was an unhealthy coping mechanism for me. And it was like whenever I drank, I just showed up as this person that I wasn't. Like when I drank, I lost control of who I actually believed myself to be. And so I'm really now acting completely out of character, showing up as a nasty person. I've had people tell me they couldn't wait for me to go to sleep so I can wake up and be myself. And so I went through a lot of dark times and moments and not even knowing what it was. I just thought I was just, listen, I had a bad day. This is bugging me out. Let's go chill. Let's drink. Let's do this. Let's smoke weed. I used to smoke a lot of weed, and I'm going to be honest with you, I enjoyed it. And at times I miss it, if we could be honest with you. But that's not my decision making today. That's not where I'm at today. I'm 100% sober in that manner, but I'm just trying to paint this picture that I went through these childhood experiences. My personality, my experience and how I show up in situations was developed at a young age. And then I got to this middle point in my life where I was, teenager, young adult, and I was just using these unhealthy coping mechanisms. Was that finding love in the wrong places, just being in different relationships, seeking for that love, drinking this alcohol, using these drugs, and just not showing up in a healthy way. I played sports, I played basketball, but that never really had my full attention because I just felt like I had to grow up sooner than I would have liked to. So I always was just like looking ahead and just seeing what I can build and what I could do and just how my life was going to be. And so I just wanted to paint that picture because when I talk about healthy and unhealthy coping mechanisms and how a lot of us didn't even know what grief was. We don't know what mourning is. And now we're running into all of these things for the most part as young adults, because I still like to say I'm a young adult, and it's all connecting the dots and making sense. And so like I led in the beginning of this conversation with saying is that grief will meet you where you are. So had I not stopped drinking, had I not seek therapy, have I not worked on my issues and was well aware of my personality and how I deal with my trauma, I think I would be struggling a lot right now. So it could be somebody out there right now that's listening to my voice and they're like, yo, I wish I would have got lit with you back then. But no, there could be someone listening to my voice right now thinking like, man, do I drink because I enjoy it, or is this like a unhealthy coping mechanism? Am I running from girl to girl, dude to dude because this is just who I am, or is it an unhealthy coping mechanism? These are the things that I want to raise those questions to you. I want you to get off this episode today and really think like, why do I do the things I do? How do I respond when my trauma is showing up and those triggers are happening? Because a lot of times I wasn't even aware that's why I'm behaving this way. So when I talked about the domestic violence and the things that I experienced, now I was never abused, but I witnessed it. And my grandmother was a safe haven for me from that stuff. She was a shield. She was my protector and my safety net. So when I lost her again, when I was faced with the trauma, how did I respond? I almost lost my mind because that was my stability. So a lot of times we're losing people in our lives and then we're feeling out of control and lost, and we're not connecting the dots as to why we feel the way that we feel about these things. And it can very well because this is related to a deeper root and a deeper issue. So I just want to really raise those points about that. Like, look in the mirror, look at yourself and say, hey, am I handling this situation the way that I'm handling it because of X, because of Y, or because of Z? And I challenge you to work on that, because as we continue to go down this journey and we continue to listen to the Grief Bully show, as I continue to post on my social media platforms and show you guys exactly who I am, I want you to be questioning things. I want you to want to work on it. I want you to want to take a peek in that corner and see what's really there. Look a little bit deeper into yourself and see why you're acting how you are. We have so many people out here that is using their trauma as personality traits. They're saying, oh, this is just who I am. That's just, yeah, but why? Like, let's just think about that for a second. Yeah, but why? Right? It's easier said than done. I get it, to do the work. But until we can do this work on our trauma, and like I always say every week, I am not a therapist. I am not a counselor. I'm none of those things, right? But I want to encourage you to go there. Like, I want this show, and it's my prayer that this show is a bridge to get you from A to B, get you in those rooms, get you in front of, and listen, I don't believe that therapists are God. I don't believe that the end all be all is there, because if you don't do the work, it doesn't matter who you're sitting across from. If you're not willing to dig deep and do it, it does not matter. And consistency is key. So if we want to continue to move down this journey and find those healthy coping mechanisms, which I'll tell you about shortly, then we're going to have to, feel comfortable getting uncomfortable, essentially, right? And I didn't tell you my story about my childhood to make my family look bad. Heck, my mom always talks about her testimony in her life, and my dad, God rest his soul, had no shame, zero shame in his game. And if I can be a little bit more transparent and deep there, on his last days, he actually apologized. And he blatantly said, I'm sorry for being an effed up dad. And I said, wow, like, you didn't have to, but thank you. I couldn't lie to him and tell him that it didn't matter, but I had to say thank you. He needed that. I needed that. My brothers needed that, and so a lot of times we don't get those opportunities to say those thank yous and such, but we did. And that's not necessarily what I want to talk about today, but I did want to say that I showed you where I've come from, because that's how I respond. So you're more than likely going to respond to your grief how you respond to everything else in your life, for the most part. So if you're a runner, you're probably going to run. If you're someone who stands up and just gets through, you're probably going to stand up and get through. But it doesn't mean that one way is wrong and one way is right per se, because I truly think there's a season for everything. I think that we have to grow, and in order to grow, we got to evolve. And in order to evolve, we have to move along the journey with time. We can't stay stuck. So it's always got to be about the evolution. But at the same token, we have to take responsibility. I say it all the time. No one is coming to save you. Like, no one's coming to save you. Like, you have to figure it out for yourself. And I want to encourage you to do the work and continue to do the work, because grief is not going to stop. We're going to continue to be faced with these different losses in our lives day in and day out. And we need to know how to respond to that. So I'll tell you some coping mechanisms here, different things that we can do in in a healthy way. So there's grief therapy and counseling, which I always advocate for, and I would encourage you to do that. You can go to Psychology Today if you want to look for a therapist and type in what you're looking for, check off the bullet points, and narrow it down and filter what exactly you're looking for and you need. Always an advocate for the gym and exercise, working out, getting those endorphins moving is always a good thing. Join the gym, get a buddy, take walks, hikes, run, jog, what you name it. Journaling is another great opportunity there for you to really get some things out and feel comfortable, because there's no one else, listening to you. You're just, getting it out and venting and writing to yourself. Also, some therapists will encourage you to write letters to your loved one. But again, I don't want to speak too much to that because that's not my arena and my lane. Deep breathing, which has been very, very helpful for me. I think I honestly underestimated the power of deep breathing because I thought I was deep breathing, but I actually wasn't, but using your diaphragm and actually really, really letting it go can work wonders. So I definitely would challenge you to do that. Also, mindfulness and meditation. Now, I still struggle in that area. I've tried meditation and I like it, but I just haven't been able to conquer it yet. But I'm going to continue to work on that and get back into it to help me. I've heard great things about the benefits that it brings to you. Support groups. Support groups are amazing. Again, that's similar to what we have with Grieve and Grow, where it's a private group where we can talk, but it's that on steroids, where there's people in there with some experiences and experience running and facilitating the groups and just working together for the common good of one another. And then self-care. Self-care could be massages. They can be getting your hair done. It could be a lot of different things, because sometimes I think when we're going through tough times, we just feel like overall, all across the board, we have to suffer and just be in this bad space. And like, we don't deserve to feel better because we just feel like crap, to be honest. But hey, ladies out there, guys out there, you get your hair done, you get that fresh shape up, you're feeling good. Sometimes it takes that much. You might, need to just go and purchase yourself something nice just to give yourself a nice gesture, maybe put a smile on your face. So self-care is definitely something that I advocate for real. So let's definitely get into the unhealthy coping mechanisms here, guys, because, there's always two sides to a coin. I feel real chill. I feel like I'm in like a Zen vibe. I hope you guys are feeling my vibrations out there. You guys are live on The Grief Bully with J.Nicole. I am your host. We are chilling. Okay. So anyway, just, I don't know, just my vibe that I feel good, feel relaxed. Like I said, I guess that's what happens when you're home alone. Just kind of, on that wave right now. So drugs and alcohol are number one. I think there's definitely layers to people's drug use and alcohol use. I don't think it's just because of certain things. I won't even get into battling that because, again, I am not experienced. I don't have the credentials to talk about that. But from what I've seen in my own personal experience, again, is all I can talk about, is definitely were unhealthy coping mechanisms. It just gives you that time to just like black out. And the thing is, what we don't realize is more times than not, we're making our lives worse, making a situation worse. We're heightening things, heightening our emotions, crying more than we normally would, just certain things like that. So if you feel like, hey, I'm drinking and then now I'm crying and I'm going off about this and going off about that, like, did you ever think, like, why am I doing this? Like, this is only making it worse. So like those quick stops to go get this Henny or this bottle of wine or whatever is your drink of choice, I'm not knocking it. I'm not saying you can't have a drink or do your thing. But if it's to heal things and fill the void and substitute the proper channels to help yourself get better, then nah, I'm not for it. So I'm really not the friend to call if you want to just go get a drink because you're feeling like X, Y, and Z. I'm the friend to call, like, we're going to pop a bottle of champagne and, I mean, you're going to drink it. I'm not. I'm always toasting water. But, if those are things that you want to do, then I can support that and get behind that. But I am not going to advocate for people drinking and substituting the process of healing the proper way. Also, keeping things bottled up inside, that's definitely unhealthy. I know it's easier said than done again. And I know that, again, like I talked about in the beginning, if that's what your patterns are and that's what you're typically used to, it's hard to break that. Like, listen, I'm not on this show just trying to paint a picture that because we make these decisions, things are just going to automatically get better. But I do believe that we have to be intentional with our healing. We have to be intentional with where we're trying to go. And so if you already have the vision and you know exactly where you're trying to go, you're going to get there. It might take you some time. You might have some setbacks, but say, you know what? Nah, I'm trying to be there. I want to be that version of myself. Like, look yourself in the mirror and say, hey, what version of myself do I want to be? What version of myself do I need to be in order for me to overcome these obstacles if it's grief? And sometimes, just to take a little sidebar, sometimes a lot of times you need something greater than yourself. You need a why, right? And so for me, when I'm feeling in those moments where I feel defeated and I just don't feel like doing the positive work, I just want to be negative, I just want to give up, I think about my loved ones and I think about them and I let them carry me. I'm like, yo, my dad and my grandmom, they would not be for me just throwing a towel in it and just saying whatever. Like, I'm not even trying to do it. They would tell me that they lived their lives. They had their opportunities, and now it's my time to do that and to do even more than they ever were able to accomplish. So I just wanted to drop that gem for you right there. If you need that extra push to get you from unhealthy to healthy, look yourself in the mirror and see your loved one and think to yourself, what would they say? You know, and I'm not trying to trigger anybody, make you feel down and feel bad or shamed because of how you have been behaving. Maybe you just didn't know. Maybe you weren't aware, right? Maybe you just didn't have the right inspiration or mindset to get you from here to there. But now you have this show. You have me as your host and your social media buddy or friend online to reach out to and tap in. And we can get you through this together. Lashing out in anger, again, how are we showing up? That's not a good thing. You can't just say, oh, I don't care. Don't you know what I'm going through right now? That is not a disclaimer for you to act like a jackass. Like, it's just really not. You cannot continue to make excuses because your experiences, they cannot dictate your behavior no longer. If they haven't to this point, then today you got to make that decision to be intentional. Like, you're not going to behave that way anymore, because what is it really doing? Is it giving you positive outcomes? I mean, hell, I never saw myself being angry make anything better. Not one thing, because usually when I step out of character, now I'm having guilt because I stepped out of character and that's not who I am and blah, 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 blah. Like, it's just all this wire mixed up stuff. So it's better to just stay on the healthy side and not show up and lash out on people, because also they don't deserve that. And you don't deserve it either. So be mindful of that. Back to the risky behaviors. Again, different sexual partners, just running through people, just doing all of these things. Like, sometimes you have to stop and think to yourself, like, why am I doing this? Like, I think that's part of the PS to today. Of course, is grief will meet you where you are. And then when you're showing up certain ways and you're doing things certain ways, like, have you ever just questioned yourself? Like, I think you might be surprised at the answer is like, wait, why am I doing this? Do I really like these people? Or I like all this, like, talking to all these people multiple times in and out of different beds every day and stuff like that. Like, it's not what's up. It's really not. Like, it has to be a reason behind that. Like, that's just my personal opinion again. So I would challenge you to look in why. And also, like, isolation is another unhealthy coping mechanism, to isolate yourself and shut down, because you're not giving yourself the opportunity to heal. You're also not giving anyone else the opportunity to help you, not save you, help you, because no one is here to save you. You have to save yourself. Guys, I just want to briefly just jump into, hopefully you digest all of that. And I'm here. We're still vibing out. We talked about a lot so far today. Again, this is episode 7, so we're moving right along here. I want to just jump into our In Love and Memory segment. If you are new to the show, our In Love and Memory segment is a part of our show where it is very important for us to humanize the loved ones that have gone on, show love to them, shout them out, and just remember them and their existence, that they are gone but never forgotten. So this week, our In Love and Memory segment goes to Earl, Junie, Flora. He was an uncle of Latanya's, and he's greatly and dearly missed by her, as well as all of her family members as well. So we just want to send love out to the entire Flora family today. Our condolences. Again, although it's been some time, a couple years, we still want to continue to humanize and recognize and show love to our folks that have gone on. So that's our In Love and Memory segment. If you would like to add someone to the show, please feel free to email us at thegriefbully@gmail.com. Subject line, In Love and Memory. And we will be sure to shout your folks out. I don't know which episode. So that means you do have to tune in each week to make sure that you don't miss that when your loved one is shouted out. So guys, before we wrap up here today, I do want to talk about this too, because it goes into, grief meeting you where you are, and just the whole healthy coping mechanism and unhealthy, and to understand this, that everyone grieves differently. Everyone mourns differently. Like, no experience is the same, because none of our life experiences are the same. So that's pretty much where that kind of ties together. So you're not going to grieve how I'm going to grieve because you didn't go through the same things that I went through in my life that like shaped me to who I am and how I deal with things. So we cannot compare, right? And so I want to touch on that too, the comparison thing. I understand with social media is very difficult because we are so exposed. I mean, at times I feel like we're overexposed with so much information. So many people's lives are running through our heads on a daily basis. So if you really just think about that, it's very hard not to compare because you might not even be intentionally doing that, but it could just be happening to you unconsciously. And I just want you to be conscious of that and cautious with that because that can be very triggering. You know, you can even be looking at me, you know, and a grief bully and all these things like, oh, how is she doing that? She just lost her dad in February and she just did this. I wish I was there. Don't wish that you were there, right? Because you don't know what my struggles are. The things that I go through, you might not be able to handle and vice versa. What you go through, I might not be able to handle, but understandably so, we all can get to a point of healing and further along in our grief journey, but take your own pace. Please understand, I'm not trying to rush anybody anywhere. All I want us to do is to have these conversations and be real. Like, yo, I'm struggling with my grief today. I am mourning. I want to cry. I want to scream and kick. I don't want to smile and be happy and be cheerful and, you know, all of this glitz and glamour. I don't want that today. And that's where I'm at. Like, we have to continue to have these conversations and talk about it. There's no cure. I don't believe there's a cure, and I don't believe that there's actually an end. I think that the mourning process can subside and you can learn to cope better because, again, these are coping mechanisms. So I think once your coping mechanisms also get healthier, I think the process could potentially get a little bit lighter for you as we move from unhealthy to healthy on this journey. So be mindful of the comparisons. Remember that we all handle trauma differently. And remember that, you know, we all experience certain things. And I believe Will Smith talked about this. He had a video where he said that things that happen to us in our life are not our fault a lot of the times, but they are our responsibility. It's no one else's responsibility to heal you or to help you. It's all on you and rests solely on your shoulders. So I want to encourage you to keep doing the work and moving through, and remembering that grief will meet you where you are. So you want to continue to work through it, dig through those layers, and make sure that we are taking care of ourselves, guys. And listen, I got to tell you, this is the second time out of 7, well, today will make 7, the second time out of 6 episodes that I have completely hyped up the inspirational boost. I mean, hyped it up like I was announcing Barack Obama was coming to the stage, and then I forgot to say the inspirational boost. So I say all of these things and I don't say the quote, and that is on me. So last week I was hyping here. I had a guest. I'm like, oh, our inspirational boost is brought to us. And that was it. I never even said it. So this week I am going to be sure to say it. Our inspirational boost is brought to us by Adina J Designs. They make, create, and inspire decorated apparel, wood signs, wedding decor, tumblers, doormats. I mean, they're customizing everything. So please go follow them on social media. Adina J Designs on both Instagram and Facebook. ADENA JAYDESIGNS on both Instagram and Facebook. Always constantly posting things. They have an Etsy online shop and store. So yeah, definitely follow them. Our inspirational boost segment is a time in our show. Our shows come out on Monday, so today is Monday, September 30th. We want to start your week off with something positive or thought-provoking for the week. So we're going to bring you a quote every time, and that quote will always be listed in our show notes. Except for last week, it says, "Oops, J.Nicole forgot to mention it," so there's nothing there. But this week it is okay. So the quote actually starts off with the words "it is," so that just threw me off. It is impossible to live without failing at something, unless you live so cautiously that you might as well not have lived at all, in which case you fail by default. That's perfect, because I actually did not read the inspirational boost before this episode, so I didn't know how it was going to tie in. I have a co-host that's kind of invisible, plays the background, that actually supports and gives me the inspirational boost each week, and they are always so on time and so awesome. And I think that's so true, that it is truly impossible to live without failure. And I think if I can, and that's by J.K. Rowling, sorry. And I think it's also impossible to live without pain. I think it's impossible to live without grief. I think it's impossible to live without struggle. I think it's so impossible to live without trauma. But I also know that it is possible to overcome all of those things. with the right mindset, the right attitude, the right intention, we definitely can continue to grow and evolve, guys. Listen, I always ask you to please subscribe, share, review the show. It's so important to me. And I know it can seem like I just want you to do that, but I want you to do that. More importantly, out of all of them, I want you to share. I want you to share the show with someone who you think could benefit from it. They could be young, old. I had a 14-year-old young man I talked to the other day, and we were able to draw commonality through our grief and our loss and our pain. And I was able to provide him with access to the podcast for a resource that would be very helpful for him. So listen, we're going to keep doing this thing together. I am so thankful that you continue to tune in with us each and every week. Listen, you already know, guys. I am your host, J.Nicole. Please follow me on social media. Instagram is where I hang out the most, so I would invite you to check me out there at I_AM_J.Nicole. Please join our Grieve and Grow group on Facebook. Just go there and type in Grieve plus Grow. So, yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this week's episode. I was real chill. It was a chill vibe. Welcoming back. We'll be back next week. We have a couple of really dope guests lined up for the next couple of weeks. We're going to have a grief therapist sometime in October as well. It's going to be great. Continue to hang in there with us. Look at me yelling at the end. And as always, you already know, I'm your host, J.Nicole. Love and light. Peace.